So it's interesting for those of us that were in the previous presentation by David Eves. He was talking a lot about the idea of academic culture and the way that academic culture is actually a barrier to open access. I think Micah just picked up on that a lot in her talk. I'm going to pick up on it a little bit more in mine. And it was really great that Micah was really talking about the responsibilities of students as students to create this kind of open access. I want to talk about the responsibilities of students in other areas of their lives. I'm going to talk a little bit about this idea of the alt-ac, the alternate academic career. So first I want to ask, just for a show of hands of people who've heard of this before, the alt-ac. Yeah, a couple of people. It's also a Twitter hashtag, so #alt-ac, A-L-T-A-C. It's not important that you guys know what that is. I was going to ask for someone to define it, but since it seems like speaking into the microphone is pretty important here, I'm just going to do it myself. So this is a definition by Bethany Nowvisky. She's the Director of Digital Research and Scholarship at the University of Virginia Library, and obviously an alt-ac herself. So she's talking about alternate academic careers. What are they? They're positions within or around the academy, but outside of the ranks of the tenure-track teaching faculty. These positions are nonetheless taken up by capable humanities scholars who maintain a research and publication profile or who bring their methodological and theoretical training to bear on problem sets in the orbit of the academy. So I'm really interested in that, but I want to sort of want to argue for a broad conceptualization of what the orbit of the academy is. And I want to talk today about alt-ac careers that include a considerable role in the world outside of the university campus. I also want to make a pitch for the importance of a concern for media issues, and especially for digital policy in the work of these alt-acs. So thus far, the idea of being an alt-academic has really been looked at as an obligation. You know, it's something that one does in response to the lack of tenure-track positions. You know, I can't be a prof, so I'll go be the director of digital learning or something like that. But that's definitely a problem. I'm definitely not arguing that this lack of tenure-track positions is something we should be thrilled about. But I also think that we can look at this possibility for the alt-academic career as an opportunity. It really depends on how you conceptualize the role of the university in society, I think. So the metaphor of the ivory tower is tired. We've heard it before, but it's also painfully apt. You know, we're a long way from a time when a university actually was a center for developing critical consciousness, for letting social movements take root and grow. And I'd like to see us get back to that. And I think the alt-academic lifestyle is one way that the university will move in that direction, especially once there's a critical mass of us doing that kind of work. So in my own version of alt-ac life, I'm a master's student here in the English Lit department, planning on continuing on and doing a PhD somewhere in something. I'm also the managing director of an organization called openmedia.ca. And I want to talk a little bit about what openmedia.ca does. I think it helps us conceptualize the issues that are going on in the world outside the university that are really important to us, and also to think through what the specifics of this kind of alt-academic lifestyle can be like. It's also extremely important for open access, and that's going to become clear pretty quickly. So with Open Media, we work in two areas. The first one is digital strategy. It's broadly defined, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. And the second is revitalizing media systems. Hopefully I'll get to talk about that a little bit too, but I'm mostly going to focus on digital strategy here because it's easy to make the case for a connection to open access. So one of the things that we do in the digital strategy area of our work at openmedia.ca is we focus on ensuring that we have net neutrality. So I'm going to ask for another show of hands of people who've heard of net neutrality. Okay, lots of people have. That's excellent. I'm still going to talk a little bit about what it is, just for those of you that don't know. So basically, network neutrality is the idea that we should all have fair and equal access to the internet, either from the content provider side or from the consumer side as well. So internet service providers in Canada, Shaw, here, Bell, TELUS, Ideally, they would like to control the speed with which different content reaches your computer. Right now, they're focusing mainly on what are called peer-to-peer applications, so Skype and BitTorrent. But there's always lots of possibilities for this to expand to other types of content. Definitely, with open media, we're always concerned about new fronts in this kind of policy war around net neutrality. So the interesting thing about net neutrality is that there has been some progress, and right now the CRTC has ruled that we should have a neutral internet in principle. In practice, the problem is that the onus is on the consumer to file a complaint against their internet service provider, their ISP. So prove that your ISP is actually discriminating against certain type of traffic. And then it's not entirely clear what will happen, but it's a consumer complaint system. And we'd like that to shift to a system where the CRTC actually audits the traffic management practices of ISPs, of internet service providers, and ensures that they aren't discriminating against different types of content. So there's a mailing list going around that you can sign if you want to find out more about that, but right now we're really focusing on a campaign, letter campaign, email campaign, Twitter campaign to the industry minister, Tony Clement. We've had success in getting the other parties to endorse the idea of audits and net neutrality, but the industry minister has not signed on yet, so that's the next place that we're concentrating our efforts, and we need your help. So I want to talk about that net neutrality issue. It's really a very small part of what open media works on, but I wanted to talk about it in more detail because I think it shows the symbiosis between the concerns of not-for-profits like openmedia.ca and of academics like John and Micah and myself who are pushing for the university to offer more public access to knowledge. So the public access that John and Micah and even David have in mind would be a lot less powerful in a world where content creators like open access journals and average users like us in this room had lower quality access to the internet than those with deeper pockets. So it's hard for us to conceive of a world in which the internet was like that, but just think of what television is like in terms of the content that you can access, and you can imagine what the possibilities are there. The thing is, though, this idea about net neutrality, it's really just a case study. As I said, it's one tiny example of what open media does, and also what I'm trying to suggest that alt academics should do in general, which is open up public space, including the university, both online and off. So it was great that Micah talked about that idea of the VPN, which is problematic in lots of ways. So I kind of want to conclude here, tie it back to Open Access Week by arguing that this frame of publicness and openness is necessary if we're going to reestablish deep support for services like the university. So even in our roles as academics, we have a vested interest in this idea of public space and publicness, openness. And the university ideally should be one key organism in this ecology of open knowledge. It should be a provider of digital literacy, critical analysis skills, public-minded content, an incubator, a launchpad for cultural projects. And I think that all of us in this room who are involved in the university need to evaluate what we do within it based on the extent to which it resituates the university in this role. So these alt academics, ideally, they necessarily interact with the public more than tenured faculty. And in that way, they sort of provide that bridge, and they're ideally placed to do some of that resituating of the university that seems quite necessary.